All right, now that we have seen the options for potential changing of the images that you have used for your designs, let's start and actually show you how you're going to get to those end results. And we're going to first start by bringing the brain image over to the rhombus cutter. So I'm going to make sure I'm on Move Tool. I'm going to highlight the color change document, and I'm going to go to the RGB layer, and I'm just going to move the RGB layer over to the rhombus cutter. So I'm just going to click, and this is a little bit different than going from here. There's no marching ants, but remember, if I turn off all the layers, the content on the RGB layer is just the brain, right? It's transparency. If I turn the white's not on part of this layer, it's part of the background. So I'm going to show you another way to take content from one file to the other. So I'm going to make sure RGB layer is highlighted, Move Tool selected. I'm going to click. I'm going to drag this layer over to the rhombus cutter window. And before I release the mouse button, I'm going to hold the Shift key. And it's going to be something different here. So holding the Shift key down, now I will release the mouse button. And there, place the brain over here. And I had it positioned so it's on top of all my cherry tomatoes, but it's underneath the rhombus cutter shapes. Now, if you haven't noticed, when I released the mouse button, it moved the brain and centered it on the document, left and right, top to bottom. And that's what the Shift key did. The Shift key constrained this so that it was placed right in the middle of the file, and that's going to be important. You're going to use that as we move forward and we start changing and exploring these different um, color options that you're going to have. So I'm going to minimize the color change image, and I'm going to focus right on this one, and I'm just going to turn those layers off, the cherry tomatoes, because I just want to use the brain and the rhombus cutter shapes that we have here, the different shapes. So let's start, and we're going to start by going just down that list. So the first one we're going to do, we have RGB, and we're going to make it into a duotone, and this, we're going to start off by doing that. And there is going to be some similarities into this process, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of this file. And you're going to ask, well, why am I going to make a copy? This is the one I'm working on. I strongly suggest that as you're working, there's going to be times where you're going to need to have like maybe a side-by-side comparison where you're going to make some little changes or maybe color changes, and that you'll want to see, well, what did it look like before? And I want to see them next to each other. And this is how you're going to do this. And over in your history tab, the bottom, you have different icons, and taking a picture, we're not going to do that. Delete, well, that will delete steps in your history actions, but over here you have a dog-eared piece of paper and a plus sign, and it, as a cursor hovering tells you, it creates a new document, and it creates a new document from whatever the highlighted state is. So here, let's just make this fit the size so it's the same size as the other one, and they're barely fits on here, but here they are. They're identical. If I click between this one, that one, and just make it just a little bit smaller so it's easy to see on the screen here, right? But when I look at the layers and I toggle between the windows, the only thing different between the one on the left and the right is the history states, right? This one over here on the left is the original one. It has all the actions that I've taken from previous demonstrations. Here, this is clean slate, all right? The history is clean. So we're going to manipulate this one. And the other thing is, so this is where you might have something side by side and you make these comparisons and you can look at this. We are ready to make this into a duotone. I'm going to turn the rhombus shape off. And before we progress any further, uh, I am going to decide what color I want to manipulate within this duotone. And so one of the things that you may want to decide on is like, well, what system is this going to be? What color choices I'm going to make? Now, there's different ways we can go about doing that. I can come over here to my window and click on swatches, and then I can highlight different ones here. Like, so I can use this one. It's like dark yellow green, pea green. If I scroll up here, so this is the one I'm looking for. Yeah, this is RGB red. So I can use red or yellow. So essentially like red from the color wheel. If this is a choice that you want to use, then I can come in and use my swatches here, and I can add my swatches over here if I need to, so I can access them later. You also can change colors over here in the foreground background color. All right, if I click on this, it gives me access. It's just black and white, but I can come over here and click on here. I can slide this up and down to find different along the spectrum, get to a blue, and then I can come over here and choose the blue that I want. Once I hit OK, it becomes the foreground color. So this is sort of how you manipulate color with a color picker or with the swatches. I'm going to revert back to black and white by clicking the mini thumbnails. I'm going to come over here, and now I'm ready to start finishing out in a duotone. So I closed off the visibility of the rhombus shape just because I just don't want to be distracted by the black changing color. I just want this. And I also turned the background off again because I'm only changing really the RGB layer. So now I'm ready to go to image, mode, and there's duotone, but it's grayed out. I can't get there. I need to go to grayscale first. I answer a couple of these questions. Don't merge. Discard that color information. I didn't want it to merge. I don't want it to get rid of the separation of layers. I want my layers to be intact. So here, go back to image mode. Now duotone is selectable. I'm going to hit this. Previous duotone colors are loaded. I'm going to go ahead and just change this to white. I'm going to click on that, drag it over here to white, hit OK. It will ask you to name it. It was already a name there, but if it's new, it's gonna be blank and you're gonna have to name it. So do that. Now for this one here, I can come back over here to my swatches, and I could choose. I believe this is the. Let's see, this should be the red, an RGB red. Yeah. So I could pick that here. All right, and it goes over here. Or again, I could use the slider. You can decide which color I want to make this. I want to make it an orange. All right, and then I could come over here and maybe a darker orange. Again, these are going to be the shadows. So hit OK. And so there you can see the scale as I choose this. Make it a little bit brighter. Hit OK. So here it is. And you can see that the darker values kind of drop out because of that. And if I feel like that's not what I want, I can come back in, hit duotone, and just leave it there. That's better. I like the little contrast a little bit better between the black and the white. And so there you have the duotone. Now you can also make a duotone with two colors. So I could come back here, and you can always change this, right? So I could change this and give it a say there, hit OK, then maybe under a complementary system, I'm going to have it some blues and a little bit of browns here, right? Some dark oranges, it's shaded orange, and then a light tinted blue. And so then I can go in, and this would be an appropriate use for a complementary system as we talk about mixing the two colors, you could do this. Now, if it was a split complementary system, you're not going to mix the colors. It would just be monochromatic. Now, it could be a light blue and then a dark blue, but you could choose what the range is on your value scale. So this is the duotone. So now we're done. Let's say we have this done. And so what we want to do now is I'm going to go to image mode and I'm going to change it back to RGB because I want to make it the same file type as the other one. I don't want to merge. I want to keep the layers intact, but I want to make sure that this file is RGB and this one is too, right? Because I'm going to bring this over here now. Again, this was essentially, I duplicated this, but I'm really just duplicating it to use this as a workspace for converting the brain from photographic RGB image to a duotone color of my choice. So move tool, come over here to RGB. Maybe I'll just double click on that and change it to duotone. Before I move it, drag it over, hold the shift key down, release the mouse button, and there it is. Duotone is placed over. And what I like about doing two images, doing the duplicate one, is that when I go to move it back, it's in the exact same spot that it was when I had previously left it, right? And so if, let's say, for instance, I duplicate this, let's say this is up here, and I were to history, make a copy, right? And then let's say I've made it into a duotone, it's all finished, and now I'm going to drag this layer over here, and I hold the shift key down and let go. I pull it back, it puts it back in the same spot, all right? Because it's looking at this whole file. So it's important, right? Because if you've already composed your design over here, but now you're just manipulating the color, you don't have to worry about reorganizing your design.